Let's be real for a second. If Hollywood ever had a poster child for this poor girl never stood a chance, it was Sue Lyon, the teenage actress who played Lolita in Stanley Kubrick's scandalous 1962 movie. She was just 14, a literal kid, and overnight she was transformed into a sex symbol for the entire world. But instead of turning her into a superstar, Lolita destroyed her. It cursed her. Her life became a tragic soap opera of broken marriages, shady men, terrible decisions, and an industry that used her up and threw her away. And before we dive in, smash that subscribe button right now or risk a lifetime of fart clouds following you into every elevator. You've been warned. All right, let's get into it. What the hell were they thinking? So here's the setup. Lolita was based on Vladimir Nabokov's infamous novel, which was already considered unfilmable. The book's whole premise is about a middle-aged man obsessed with a 12-year-old girl. How do you make that into a movie without getting shut down by every censorship board in the world? Stanley Kubrick's solution: fudge the numbers. Instead of a 12-year-old, they'd cast an older teenager who could legally work, but who still looked like a child. And that's how 14-year-old Sue Lyon walked into the audition room and changed her life forever. The studio executives thought they were geniuses. They could sell scandal without technically breaking the law. But really, let's call it what it was. They were cashing in on child exploitation. They put a kid in braces in the arms of James Mason, a man in his 50s, and called it art. Kubrick himself? He hid behind the excuse that he was making serious cinema. But on set, he reportedly kept Sue at arm's length, treating her less like a child actor and more like a prop. The entire production team viewed her not as Sue Lyon, the girl, but as Lolita, the character. The shady onset reality. The real heartbreak is how alone Sue was during filming. Her mother was on set, but she wasn't fighting to protect Sue. She was more interested in pushing her daughter's career forward. Sue later admitted she didn't really understand what the story was about. She thought she was just playing a bratty teen. Nobody explained to her the adult themes. Nobody prepared her for the way the world was about to sexualize her. And the marketing campaign? Absolutely brutal. Posters showed her in skimpy clothes with those red heart-shaped sunglasses, licking a lollipop. Remember, she was still in high school. Kubrick and the studio knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted controversy. They wanted scandal. And they got it. But the price was Sue Lyon's innocence. While Kubrick and MGM raked in money and accolades, Sue was left with a public image she didn't even understand. Dubious fame. When Lolita hit theaters in 1962, Sue Lyon became a household name overnight. She even won a Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer. But here's the thing. She wasn't seen as a promising actress. She was seen as a symbol, the underage seductress, the jailbait fantasy. She became shorthand for taboo desire. Instead of Hollywood seeing her as a versatile young actress, they only saw Lolita. And that meant she couldn't transition into normal roles. She was too tainted to play the sweet girl next door, too young to be taken seriously as a grown woman, and forever branded by scandal. This fame was dubious at best. She was famous for the wrong reasons. She didn't get the protection or mentoring that other child stars sometimes received. Hollywood abandoned her as quickly as it made her. The aftermath. The girl who became a symbol. So what happens when you take a teenage girl, push her into the spotlight as a sex object, and then discard her? You get someone like Sue Lyon, deeply insecure, prone to self-destructive choices, and always chasing something that felt like stability but slipped out of reach. Friends later described her as charming, funny, and sharp, but also restless and fragile. She never truly believed she was loved for who she was. How could she? The world only ever loved her as Lolita. That lack of grounding shaped everything she did afterward. Her relationships, her career choices, her erratic behavior, it all ties back to the fact that Hollywood warped her identity before she even had a chance to form one. By the time she turned 20, she was already sliding into the "where are they now" category of forgotten starlets. And that's when her personal life started playing out like a never-ending tabloid drama. Marriage number 1. Roland Harrison. Scandal, baby, divorce. Sue's first marriage was pure tabloid bait. In 1971, at age 23, she married Roland Harrison, a 29-year-old African-American photographer and football coach. And remember, the early 1970s weren't exactly friendly toward interracial couples. The press went insane. Instead of focusing on Sue's happiness, tabloids painted her as reckless and troubled. She had a baby girl, Nona, in 1972. But the marriage couldn't survive the racism, the gossip, and Rowland's rumored infidelity. Within a year, it was over. Sue was left as a single mom, already divorced once before she even hit 25. Marriage number 2. Hampton Fancher, the writer who ran. Next up, Hampton Fancher, a struggling actor who later became famous as the writer of Blade Runner. He and Sue had a whirlwind romance, married in 1973 and divorced in 1974. The problem? Hampton was chasing his Hollywood dreams, bouncing between acting gigs and writing, while Sue was drowning in depression and still carrying the baggage of being Lolita. They were a total mismatch. The tabloids barely kept up with this one. It ended so fast it barely counted, but it added to her reputation, the girl who couldn't keep a man. Marriage number 3, Cotton Adamson, the jailhouse husband. Now this is where things get really trashy. In 1983, Sue Lyon shocked everyone by marrying Cotton Adamson, a convicted armed robber and accused murderer, while he was still in prison. Yes, you heard that right. She literally married an inmate. Sue claimed Cotton was gentle and misunderstood. The press had a field day. They branded her the real-life Lolita gone wrong. When Cotton got out, he violated parole almost immediately and went straight back to prison. Surprise, surprise, the marriage didn't last. People who knew Sue said it was proof she was spiraling, trapped in toxic patterns, almost attracted to chaos. Marriage number 4, Edward Weathers. Blink and you miss it. Sometime in the early 80s, Sue married a guy named Edward Weathers, and honestly, nobody remembers him. This one was so short-lived it barely made the papers. Think of it as a messy rebound. They got married, it didn't work, annulment, the end. Marriage number 5, Richard Rudman. Almost normal. Finally, in 1985, Sue married Richard Rudman, a radio engineer, and for once, things looked stable. They lasted 17 years. But even then, Sue struggled with depression and health problems. The relationship quietly dissolved in 2002, and Sue faded completely from public life. It was her longest marriage, but even that ended in heartbreak. The personality shaped by Hollywood. By the end of her life, Sue Lyon had become a shadow of what Hollywood promised her to be. She was witty, yes, but she was also jaded. She distrusted men, distrusted Hollywood, and distrusted the very system that had raised her up just to spit her out. She lived with a constant sense of being misunderstood, defined not by her own choices, but by one role she played as a child. That haunted her forever. The end of the Lolita curse. Sue Lyon died in 2019 at age 73. By then, she had been out of Hollywood for decades, living quietly, forgotten by the industry that once sold her image to the world. Even in her obituary, she wasn't remembered as Sue Lyon, the woman. She was remembered as Lolita, forever frozen in those heart-shaped sunglasses. Sue Lyon's story is Hollywood at its worst. A child sold as a symbol, discarded when the scandal cooled, and left to chase broken marriages and lost dreams. She didn't just play Lolita. She lived out the curse of Lolita, and it ruined her life. And listen, if you don't subscribe right now, don't be surprised when your Wi-Fi drops out every time you try to stream something spicy. Smash that button.